I just wonder what the last 2 months have been like, just the whirlwind of everything and just kind of how you've absorbed all of that.
Well, it's been sort of a whirlwind in terms of being honored. After I left the Hall of Fame, I did a couple of local sports organizations in Norfolk, and then Norfolk State honored me, and sort of just trying to sort out how this Hall of Fame thing works. And some of the suggestions were good suggestions. Some of them were bad suggestions. Everything from Bruce Smith telling me, well, you got to walk differently because you're a Hall of Famer. And Spencer Haywood says, well, something's wrong with your answering machine because you aren't saying Bob Dandridge, HOF, on your answering machine. But then, that's just not the way I carry myself. But it's been a blast. The accolades, it keeps me humble. And the other day I looked up, I think there may be 250, if that many, players that are really in the Hall of Fame. There are other folks in there, but there are probably no more than 250 players. And that becomes humbling to feel that you've been accepted in a special society. And when I walked off the stage after my speech and the embraces that I received, they were just special because I said, you are exactly where you belong. As a kid, I never thought about Hall of Fame. All I thought about was playing basketball. And even when I left the league, I didn't think that much about that there was such a thing as a Hall of Famer. But it's still exciting, and I hope that this feeling stays with me, but it's also a motivating factor that I can use the energy that I feel from this Hall of Fame induction to maybe helping others, motivating them to be better or to do well, or to let them know that the world is wide open no matter where you come from. But it's a lot of hard work, luck, and having the right attitude and building relationships along the way.
You were part of two championship organizations. So you obviously had kind of that secret sauce that championship players and teams have. I just wonder what you took from each of those experiences that you knew this team was not just good enough, but this team could accomplish what's very difficult to accomplish in winning it all.
Well, I learned how to lead and lead by example on the championship in Milwaukee. Kareem and I were only in our second year, and we were fortunate to acquire a guy like the Big O. And he led by example. He would go 2 or 3 quarters just making sure everybody else was involved, but then going down the stretch, you could see him masterfully taking over slowly by slowly, dominating. And that gave Kareem and I a chance to mature and to see exactly what the program was like. I had an opportunity to practice those things after Oscar left. And then after Kareem left, I was in Milwaukee 2 years, and I was the leader. So I had an opportunity to practice leadership because it just doesn't come overnight. And the main thing is to getting other players to believe in you. And, you know, that's a talent within itself. And it's not a thing of word talking the game, but playing the game, being able to communicate with each player in his own individual way, meeting players exactly where they were. And I learned that in my last 2 years in Milwaukee. And my last year in Milwaukee, I knew that I was the best small forward in the league. My last year in Milwaukee, regardless of who got the public relations, I knew that I had the respect of every small forward in the league. And then when I went to Washington, for those 2 years, I was the best small forward in the league. And I often tell Elvin Hayes that he and I were the best forward combination in the league at that time. So my development came over a number of years because the pro game is entirely different from the college game. And I must say I had great coaches. I mean, Larry Costello and Dick Marta, they may not have been what we call a player's coach. And for us, that was good because they always let us know who was in charge and that we weren't in charge as players. So my development and coming to Washington was just real special because I wanted to play here. I wanted to play on the East Coast. And at that time, Washington was just on fire with the chocolate city thing. African Americans were doing well, had great government jobs, kids were well educated. So for me, it was just the perfect climate as far as athletically and socially. And playing with Wes and Elvin, Greavy, Mitch Kupchak, you know, we just had a special team that could compete with any team in the league today. And a lot of that has to do with not only the starting five, but guys like Larry Wright, Greg Ballard, Tom Henderson, guys of that nature. And all these guys were #1 draft choices. And so I'm ever grateful for Bob Ferry, Mr. Poland, the Bullets organization for having enough faith in me that I was the guy, and I felt I was the guy that could get them over the hump.
Hey, Bob, I'm wondering, what recollections do you have of Wes Jr. as a youngster?
Just as a youngster, that
Well, first, you know, during the championship run, maybe in the 70s.
He couldn't have been no older than probably 5 or 6, and he was like our kids, just running around in the family room, flipping over, you know, being a 5-year-old. And you know, it's tough to remember. You know, my daughter, who's his age, would probably remember more about Wes Jr. than I would, because, you know, Wes lived on the other side of Baltimore. I lived in Alexandria. And, you know, during that time, you played together, but your families didn't necessarily socialize together. So, but I've seen Wes Jr. over the years. You know, a young man with a lot of character, a guy who's more than paid his dues as an assistant coach. I think of all the new coaches this year, he is the most qualified to be an assistant. And I think his probably demeanor and the way he carries himself is more mature for a head coach than any of the other coaches that were appointed this year.
Do you see any similarities between Wes Jr. and Wes Sr.?
None whatsoever.
Okay. How are they so different?
I mean, Wes was a player, I think, more so than a coach. Wes could play, and although he had coaching opportunities, I think his son is more born to coach, and Wes was born to be a player. And I think that's the distinction. And that's the basic distinction. You know, Wes's son has been a student of the game. He's been around it. He played some college ball, but he wasn't obsessed with it. He had some other goals. He probably wanted to be a coach long before he acknowledged it. So I just think that, you know, with patience, he'll do well. Seems like the young players got a lot of respect for him. And like I say, I see some promise in him as a coach.
Any questions for Bob on Zoom? All right, all set. Thank you for your time, Bob. We appreciate it.
You're welcome. Okay. Okay.